So, you're looking at getting your first iSUP, but there's so many on the market, and there's such a big difference in how much you can spend. So in this video, we're going to look at one around about the 300 quid mark, and one at about the 600 quid mark, and show the difference between the two, so you can choose which one's best for you. The first board we're going to look at is under 300 quid, and we bought it from a medium-sized business online. Let's have a look at what you get for your money. Nice little bag with a leash, fairly basic leash. A pump, a single action pump, which means it only pumps on the way down. Hose that goes with that to pump up the board. We have the repair kit. We've got a fin, fairly basic paddle. So this is a 3-piece paddle. Put any weight on that. Does look a bit like it might go. Here's the board. Already to the trained eye, I can see where they've got the price down in terms of materials and the finishing. But we'll see more of that when we pump it up. The next board we're going to look at is this one. Now this one is 650 quid. It comes from Board 360. See that it's slightly bigger. It comes with a separate compartment at the front for some of the smaller items, just to make it a little bit easier for storage. So yeah, here's the pump, and this is a double action pump, which means that it pumps on the way up and the way down. Again, means it's quicker to get the thing inflated. It also has got this handy little function to take this little red device off, which actually means you can make it single. So when you're trying to pump the last few PSI right at the very end, it's sometimes easier to do that on a single rather than a double pump. There's the valve that comes with that. Here's the leash, repair kit, and a fin. Open up the rest of the pack. You can see a 3-piece paddle. Something to note is that you can see that the paddle is slightly offset, which makes it a more efficient stroke. And here's the board. The seams look stronger, materials feel thicker, and we'll see more of that when they're pumped up. So at this stage of the review, it's fairly even. You pretty much get the same in each package. However, you are seeing a better quality board and better quality accessories in the more expensive package. Let's get the boards pumped up. We explore relative volume shortly, but the lower price board on the left has quite a lot less volume to pump up than the more expensive board on the right. But it actually took longer to pump up the smaller lower price board, which illustrates the benefit of a double pump over a single pump. So now we're just going to check out a few differences between them. Let's look at dimensions. The higher price board is 5 inches thick, whereas the lower price board is only 4 inches thick. That extra thickness gives you more volume and stability. Having overlaid the lower price board on the higher price board underneath, you can see the grey edges of the higher price board showing the extra width. It also shows the shape differences, with the higher price board have a longer effective edge, which gives you more control in the water, whilst the lower price board has a shorter, straighter edge. You can also see the deck pad area. The higher price board has a much greater surface area. It's also a higher grade of foam, so it's much more comfortable under your feet. The higher price board also has a kicktail at the back to make it easier to control in surf. Moving on to seams, you can see here that the higher price board has a really solid and well constructed seam that looks like it'll last for a long time. Whereas the lower price board, you can see bubbles already starting to form in the seam itself. Here you can see that the higher price board has much better construction, a double layering on the fixings. The handle is attached neatly and securely with padding for comfort. We can see here the lower price board, the construction just looks so much more basic. There's no padding on the handle, and the whole thing makes me think that after a few goes and a bit of time out on the water, you'd start to see delamination bubbling up and seams starting to fall apart. You can also see on this one, it's got this extra layer of protection around the outside. Overall, this whole thing just feels so much more solid. But actually this extra layer around the outside is really quite comforting to know that any little brushes or whatever, you've got 2 layers there rather than 1. This one has only got the 1 layer. You can really feel it feels a little bit on the fragile side. So the leash, very basic leash. It's quite a narrow one, it's slightly padded, but yeah, that might irritate your ankle a little bit. And there's no swivels on them, so if there's any tangling going on, you'll just end up getting tangled up. Whereas on the Mobyk, you see you've got to swivel that in. You've got a much thicker ankle strap, and there's much more padding on it, so that'll be much more comfortable for you. It's also got a little key pocket on it as well. The profile of those is quite different. This will help in terms of stability and speed. The edge, this is contoured to give it a bit more streamline, whereas this is just a very basic flat piece of plastic. And then if you look at the paddles, on here there's a groove that goes down there, which means that it won't spin that way, so you've got more control that way. Whereas on this one, basically it kind of still swivels in there, doesn't feel very tight and secure. Riding the lower price board first, you can see there's a few wobbles as I get up. That's what happens with a narrower board. And you can see there's a fair bit of sag in the board. This is the result of the less rigid construction and less thickness. As I paddle away, you continue to see that sag, and I could feel it dragging in the water with less glide, which over short distance is fine, but over long distance it'll take its toll. As I paddle towards the camera, you can see the board is pushing water at the front as a result of the sag, and again makes the board less efficient. On the higher price board, we can see the board is much more stable as I stand up, and it's much flatter in the water with very little sag. The main part of the board is pretty much flat, with the nose rise the result of rocker on the board, which is part of the design for surfing rather than it sticking up because the board is flexing. This means the board glides much smoother through the water on the flat surface, and the rise in the nose helps to cope with chop or stops the nose digging when you catch a wave surfing. As I paddle towards the camera, you can see overall the board is much more stable and glides well in the water. We're not saying there isn't a place for lower price boards. If you just want something to play around on with the family and you're not going far from shore and you're just doing short distances, it's probably fine. But bear in mind, the board might develop short-term quality issues and it will definitely degrade quicker. However, if you want to learn faster, paddle longer distances, and have confidence your board isn't going to let you down, it's worth that extra money as it will get you a quality board and accessories that will last for a fair bit of time. It's quite likely to have a good second-hand value as well, giving you even better value for money. So the choice is yours, but we just want you to get the most from your ride time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check us out at boards360.com or follow us on social media.